Forget everything your 8th grade teacher told you. The American Revolution wasn't a noble assembly of powdered wigs and polite philosophy. It was an unhinged, chaotic mess of poisonous dinner parties, blue royal urine, and lethal petticoats. History books scrubbed the truth because the reality is just too embarrassing. Hit subscribe right now. I'm about to ruin your childhood textbooks forever. 1. Assassination by tainted food was a popular military tactic. Elite generals like George Washington had to dodge arsenic-laced wine and lethal peaches served by their own trusted housekeepers. They turned every evening meal into a lethal game of dinner table roulette. He basically dealt with a personal chef secretly trying to cancel his subscription to Life just to score a promotion from the rival company. Washington watched his plate like a hawk. Trusting the soup meant risking a violent, agonizing end before dessert even hit the dining table. You couldn't eat bread safely. Trust your cook or starve. 2. Deborah Sampson disguised herself as a man to fight and performed her own brutal battlefield surgery. After taking 2 musket balls to the thigh, she let an army doctor fix the first bleeding wound. She then snuck away into the dark woods to dig out the second lead bullet herself using nothing but a rusty penknife and a basic sewing needle. She literally became her own terrifying emergency room just to avoid a military human resources violation. She makes modern action stars look like fragile glass. Digging into your own flesh takes a special breed of grit. She ripped it out. Just raw agony. 3. Frustrated Continental officers secretly plotted a coup to crown George Washington as the King of America. Right after fighting a bloody, grueling war to escape a royal tyrant, high-ranking military dudes decided the best solution to their broke Congress was to invent a brand new monarch. They broke out of a toxic relationship only to immediately date someone with the exact same name and the exact same red flags. Washington had to step in and shut the unhinged fantasy down before they ordered a custom throne from a local carpenter. They spent years shedding blood to end monarchy, only to demand a fresh one instantly. Humans are idiots. 4. The broke revolutionaries funded a huge chunk of their war by legalizing piracy on the open ocean. Congress handed out formal permission slips to private ship owners, telling them to go feral, plunder British merchant vessels, and steal their cash to bankroll the fight for liberty. Forget humble bake sales. This was a bloody, cannon-filled episode of Shark Tank, where the business model featured ruthless nautical mugging. They seized valuable cargo, hoarded stolen gold, and violently sank whoever dared to get in their way. I'm not making this up. The government essentially created an armed mafia. Would you buy a pirate boat? Counterfeit money rained down on the colonies. 5. The British military dumped fake bills everywhere to destroy the fragile American economy. Instead of just shooting people, they printed tons of flawless fake continental dollars, flooded the rebel colonies, and caused such catastrophic inflation that the currency became a running joke. The British ran a masterclass in trolling. They executed an 18th century crypto rug pull that destroyed a whole nation's wallet without firing a single musket. Citizens suddenly needed wheelbarrows full of paper just to buy a single loaf of stale bread. Financial sabotage beat bullets, broke and desperate. 6. Benjamin Franklin wanted the national bird to be a loud turkey and invented a doomed phonetic alphabet. While everyone demanded the majestic bald eagle, Franklin passionately argued that eagles were lazy thieves. He claimed a gobbling turkey was much more dignified and respectable for a new country. He acted like a tech billionaire trying to replace the bald eagle with a giant pigeon, while forcing everyone to text in weird, unreadable emojis. He tried to alter the spelling system just to mess with people's heads. Thank God the founders ignored his crazy bird ideas. He was a brilliant man, but a terrible graphic designer. A gobbling tragedy. Picture General Charles Lee rolling out of bed to fight. 7. He was a bizarre eccentric who preferred his hunting dogs over humans and treated lethal combat like a casual joke. When challenged to a deadly pistol duel for insulting Washington, Lee showed up to the life-or-death encounter wearing his casual dressing gown and bedroom slippers. He looked mildly annoyed by the whole noisy ordeal. He showed up to a lethal gunfight with the exact same energy as someone signing for a greasy pizza delivery in their cozy pajamas. He survived the gunshot with a literal shrug. He didn't even bother to put on real pants before risking his life. Pajama gunfight? Badass or insane? 8. Local colonial taverns served as the worst possible places for military operational security. Spies didn't rely on stealthy gadgets, hidden cameras, or a premium subscription to a VPN. They just bought a few rounds of cheap ale, sat back in the dark, and listened to drunken soldiers loudly bragging about top-secret troop movements. An intern accidentally live-streaming classified Pentagon war plans after taking too many shots at a loud frat party has better security. Loose lips sank ships, but these drunk idiots practically handed over the steering wheel for a single pint. They leaked troop routes just to sound cool. Idiots with alcohol. 9. America's first combat submarine was a catastrophic, hand-cranked failure. A guy crammed himself into a wooden acorn, sank beneath the waves, and tried to secretly drill a bomb into a giant British ship. He failed to pierce the metal hull, lost his target in the dark water, and accidentally released a heavy bomb that just floated away into nowhere. He acted less like a stealthy assassin and more like a toddler trying to open a metal soup can with a plastic spoon in the pitch black. The explosive detonated miles away, harming no one except a few unlucky passing fish. He cranked his wooden barrel all the way home in shameful defeat. Total nautical embarrassment. Thanksgiving dinner fight started early. 10. In the beginning, a huge portion of the American population hated the idea of independence. Far from a unified patriotic surge, millions of colonists thought the revolution was horrifying treason. Radicals had to drag them kicking and screaming into the brutal war, using pamphlets that went 18th century viral. The entire country functioned as a deeply uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinner. Half the family actively plotted to burn down the house, while the other half just wanted to drink tea in peace. Nobody actually agreed on shedding blood. They hated each other. Treason or loyalty? Which side are you? 11. The 1st Rhode Island Regiment marched in as an elite unit made up of marginalized African American and Native American fighters. These men didn't just fill empty ranks. They fought with such ferocious, terrifying discipline that they shattered the morale of highly trained German mercenaries who expected a quick and easy fight. They walked right into the ultimate prejudice boss fight and speed ran the enemy troops. They proved that flying lead bullets don't care about your snobby 18th century social constructs. They wiped the floor with Europe's finest killers and left them bleeding in the mud. Just lethal efficiency. The King of England urinated like a smurf. 12. British monarch King George III suffered from a genetic mental illness that caused bizarre physical symptoms. While trying to suppress a global revolution, the king endured violent convulsions, screamed incoherently at the palace walls, and uncontrollably peed the color of bright blue ink. He tried to micromanage a hostile corporate takeover while his brain constantly short-circuited, and his failing body produced novelty-colored bodily fluids. He lost 13 entire colonies while his baffled doctors stared at his glowing blue chamber pot. A royal medical disaster. 13. Rebellious colonists tore down a giant lead statue of King George to melt it into bullets, but the metal seemingly fought back. As the angry rebels tossed the heavy chunks into the blazing fire to create patriotic musket balls, a specific section containing the king's sculpted portrait violently exploded right in their faces. It felt like a supernatural jump scare. The ultimate toxic X blew up your phone one last time, just as you tried to delete their contact permanently from your life. It sent jagged, hot shrapnel flying everywhere, terrifying the screaming crowd. They wanted bullets but got a bomb instead. Royal dark magic or trapped air bubble? 14. The British Army spent days frantically shooting at random river garbage because floating barrels terrified them. Americans sent gunpowder-filled kegs drifting down the icy river. Most failed to detonate, but the sheer paranoia made elite British soldiers scream and fire heavy cannons at every single harmless log or stick that floated past their camp. They waged mass psychological warfare. A group of well-armed tough guys lost their minds fighting a pile of wet floating Amazon boxes. They wasted thousands of expensive musket balls executing ordinary driftwood and empty barrels. The river won the battle. Truly pathetic aim. 15. The legendary Battle of Bunker Hill didn't even happen on Bunker Hill. The epic, blood-soaked military stand that defines early American bravery actually took place next door on Breed's Hill. Bunker Hill just grabbed all the historical credit because it sounded vastly cooler on paper. You claim you conquered Mount Everest when you actually just power walked up a slightly steep dirt mound nearby, but your slick public relations team covered it up for maximum clout. Tourists still visit the wrong monument today, taking solemn photos of irrelevant grass. We built a massive legend on the wrong address. A geographical scam. Cannons rolled up to the boss's door. 16. Unpaid, freezing American soldiers lost their minds and violently mutinied against their own Congress. Over 1,000 furious soldiers finally snapped, killed their commanding officers, grabbed literal field cannons, and marched straight on Philadelphia to demand their missing paychecks from terrified politicians. It escalated into the ultimate toxic workplace strike. They orchestrated an unpaid intern uprising, except these interns possessed heavy artillery and zero patience left for corporate excuses. They wanted cold, hard cash and threatened to blow up the Capitol. Unpaid wages, time to bring cannons. 17. The military genius who trained the fledgling U.S. Army was a disgraced, unemployed fraud who couldn't even speak English. Baron von Steuben faked his fancy resume, showed up to camp, and drilled troops by screaming a multilingual gibberish of German, French, and English profanities whenever he forgot the real commands. He pulled off the greatest fake-it-till-you-make-it scam in human history. He became a legendary fitness coach by just furiously cursing at exhausted teenagers in 3 different languages until they marched straight. He scammed his way to national glory without knowing the native vocabulary. What a legend. 18. A colossal, decisive military battle got canceled by a sudden, ridiculous weather event. 2 opposing armies lined up, primed their lethal cannons, fixed their sharp bayonets, and prepared for an epic bloodbath. Suddenly, a hurricane-level downpour soaked all the exposed gunpowder, forcing everyone to just awkwardly pack up and go home. They geared up for a brutal, high-stakes street fight, only for both tough gangs to get violently sprayed by a giant garden hose. Both sides just decided to call the whole thing off and seek dry shelter. They stood in the mud, unable to shoot each other, looking like drenched fools. Wet powder saves lives. 19. Benjamin Franklin officially suggested using human semen as top-secret invisible ink for spies. Seriously. Franklin, with a straight face, praised this bodily fluid for its chemical resistance and ready availability. He proposed it as the ultimate encryption tool for sensitive government correspondence. He turned every secret spy mission into a profoundly weird biology project. It ranks as the most unhinged office supply request in human history. Imagine writing a classified treasonous letter using your own personal fluids while sitting in a dark tavern. The logistics of reloading your pens sound exhausting. Worst office supply request ever? 20. While Americans starved and froze to death, a British general threw a lavish medieval-themed party nearby. Just miles away from the horrifying misery of Valley Forge, General Howe hosted a multi-day blowout featuring fake jousting knights, fireworks, and infinite wine. He willfully ignored the bitter war outside his warm windows. He displayed the sheer blissful audacity of throwing an ultra-expensive, obnoxious frat party right next door to a raging neighborhood dumpster fire. He practically toasted to their frostbite while stuffing his face with fancy roasted meats. Such arrogant rich boy energy. People ate their shoes while he watched fireworks. Read the room. Microscopic serial killers stalked the camps. 21. The worst killer at Valley Forge wasn't flying British bullets. It was disgusting, rampant disease. Thousands of men didn't die heroically in open battle. They were silently slaughtered in mass graves by typhus, dysentery, and filth because camp hygiene functioned as a living nightmare. The real villain manifested as an invisible serial killer, operating in an era where washing your hands counted as a weird alternative lifestyle choice. They camped in their own toxic waste and paid the ultimate biological price. Disease wiped them out far faster than any royal cannons. Bullets or bacteria, what kills faster? 22. Both armies experimented with deploying giant, snarling dogs as literal weapons of war. Military leaders tried to train packs of angry 100-pound mastiffs to charge enemy lines or stand guard in the dead of night. They added rows of vicious, dripping teeth to the already terrifying volley of flying musket fire. Getting shot didn't seem brutal enough, so generals released the hounds. They turned a standard smoky battlefield into a high-stakes, hyper-violent neighborhood dog park. Soldiers had to dodge lead balls and rabid bites simultaneously while trying to reload. You could lose your leg to a cannonball or a hungry mastiff. A literal dogfight. 23. The most elite secret spy ring in New York passed critical intelligence using wet laundry. Instead of utilizing high-tech dead drops, a woman named Anna Strong signaled operatives by hanging a specific sequence of black petticoats and handkerchiefs on her clothesline. This mundane routine perfectly dictated hidden rebel boat landings. The entire fate of the American Revolution literally hung on a pair of wet underwear flapping in the salty breeze. She proved that doing mundane household chores can actually equate to high-level treason, a masterclass in domestic espionage. No one suspects the lady washing her socks. Deadly laundry tactics. 24. General Anthony Wayne acted so unhinged that even his own men thought he was legally insane. He earned his mad nickname after threatening biblical-level torture on a local informant. He led his troops with suicidal bravery and cooked up military plans fueled by chaotic rage. He operated as the military equivalent of a guy who chugs 6 energy drinks, punches a brick wall, and then successfully leads a corporate buyout through sheer, terrifying volume. He yelled his way to victory while everyone else trembled in fear. His men followed him because they feared him more than the enemy. Brilliant general or just mentally unhinged? 25. George Washington's teeth weren't cute carved wood. They formed a horrifying, spring-loaded torture device. His rotting mouth sat packed with pulled human teeth, cow teeth, and hippo ivory wired onto thick lead springs. This nightmarish contraption constantly caused him agonizing pain and horribly distorted his inspirational speeches. He tried to confidently rally a desperate army while his mouth felt like a botched medieval Frankenstein experiment, actively trying to bite his own bleeding gums. Every word he spoke required fighting back tears of immense pain. He suffered for freedom. His jaw was a literal trap, a miserable smile. 26. Yankee Doodle originally dropped as a savage British diss track to mock Americans. British soldiers sang it loudly to call the colonists disorganized, try-hard clowns. Instead of crying about it, the Americans cranked up the volume, stole the catchy song, and proudly played it while killing the very people who wrote it. They took their bully's insult, made it their official hype playlist, and blasted it while destroying the bully's house. It stands as the ultimate psychological power move. They embraced the joke and turned it into a deadly battle anthem for victory. The British surrendered to their own sarcastic tune. Steal their insult and win the war? Soldiers looked at their dirty boots and saw dinner. 27. Starving soldiers at Valley Forge reached such terrifying limits that they ate their own clothes. With zero rations and freezing temperatures, desperate men had to boil their only pair of protective leather shoes and chew on the nasty hide just to survive another winter night. This redefines the concept of a tough diet. You literally size up your own dirty boots as a potential 3-course meal while freezing in the snow. They swallowed the very soles they marched on just to keep their stomachs from digesting themselves. They ate footwear for dinner, a truly disgusting feast. 28. Agent 35. Five operated as a female super spy who swayed battles, but her real identity remains a total mystery. She risked her life infiltrating British high society, delivered game-changing intelligence, and then simply vanished into thin air. She left no true name, no grave, and no final record. She acted as the ultimate historical ghost. She pulled the strings of a giant war before deleting her search history and disappearing from the server forever. She played the biggest players in the world and then logged off without leaving a single trace behind. She hacked the 18th century Matrix and ghosted everybody. The ultimate Irish goodbye. 29. While Washington struggled to save the freezing army, his own generals secretly plotted to fire him. In the Conway cabal, a shadowy clique of toxic politicians and rival generals spread vicious rumors that Washington lacked competence. They tried to steal his job right in the middle of the apocalypse. He tried to put out a giant house fire while his coworkers stood behind him, complaining to human resources that he didn't hold the water hose correctly. They cared more about their own promotions than surviving the brutal winter. Corporate backstabbing at its finest during a war. They wanted the title without doing the actual freezing work. Despicable snakes. 30. America built a strange monument specifically for the leg of its greatest traitor. Because Benedict Arnold heroically wounded his leg before turning into a colossal traitor, the memorial features a carved stone boot. It pointedly refuses to mention his actual name anywhere on the bronze plaque. It stands as the ultimate pinnacle of petty, passive-aggressive breakups. The country basically said they genuinely loved his lower limb, but the rest of him remains dead to them forever. They canceled the man but immortalized his shin in solid rock. It proves that early Americans mastered the art of petty revenge. Honor the leg but cancel the man? 31. A 16-year-old girl named Sybil Luddington rode twice as far as Paul Revere but got zero credit. While Revere did a basic 20-mile dash, this teenage girl rode a staggering 40 miles alone through a dark, rainy night. She dodged violent bandits to rally troops and didn't even get a simple poem written about her. She essentially completed the ultra-hardcore nightmare mode version of the quest. The public relations department just handed the shiny gold medal to the older guy who played on easy tutorial mode. She did all the dirty work in the freezing rain. Revere got the fame, while she just got a tired horse. Stolen historical valor. 32. The terrifying Hessian mercenaries actually operated as broke German farm boys sold into service by their greedy princes. American propaganda painted them as baby-eating monsters. In reality, they were mostly reluctant dudes in fancy hats, forced to fight a war they didn't care about simply because their rulers needed quick cash. They weren't evil supervillains. They functioned as exhausted employees trapped in the universe's worst, most lethal temp gig, thousands of miles away from their own homes. They fought and died for a bloody paycheck they never even saw. Their own royal bosses sold them out for pocket change. A tragic corporate scam. Wait, think about that for a second. We just powered through 32 levels of raw historical insanity, and my brain feels like it just took a stray musket ball. The sheer volume of absurdity hidden in these old government records hurts to read. You can't unlearn this stuff. They scrub the best parts to protect our delicate minds. But I promised you a winner, and there is one undisputed champion of this chaotic mess. Benjamin Franklin's bodily fluid invisible ink takes the heavy crown. The man looked at international espionage and decided the missing ingredient was his own biology. Are history textbook publishers just cowards for hiding the weirdest stuff from us? 33. In 1783, the new Congress had to flee out the back door to escape their own unpaid, furious soldiers holding them hostage. The glorious Founding Fathers launched their shiny democracy by sprinting away from the heroes who gave them their country. Independence isn't secured when the enemy surrenders. It's secured when the payroll check clears. Tell me in the comments, did the colonists win by skill or massive dumb luck? Name the biggest idiot of the revolution from this video. The most unhinged answer gets pinned in the next drop.